Simple, yet powerful acts of believing in someone can lead to real transformational change. I wasn't always the person I am today. I made many mistakes, and those mistakes led me down a dark path of self-destruction. But little did I know that path of self-destruction was actually my path to self-development. For over 5 years, from the ages 19 until my mid-20s, I lived a life of luxury cars, expensive homes, private and first-class trips, and lavish parties with the who's who of the music celebrity world. But then it all came to an end. Now, I wish I can tell you that that lifestyle was a product of me being at the helm of a Fortune 500 company, but I can't. On the contrary, that lifestyle was a product of me being at the helm of a drug organization that reached up and down the East Coast. Throughout my life, I've held many titles, none of which I stand here proud of today. Liar, womanizer, gangster, kingpin, gang leader. You name it, at one point in my life, I was it. And I once foolishly wore these titles as something to be proud of, a badge of honor, because I was too blind to understand that these titles were a manifestation of pain, trauma, and oppression. For many of you, my story of change may seem unique. It's only unique that I lived to tell it. I am just one example of what many people are faced with on their road to adulthood. Many are stuck, as I was, in a life plagued by violence, trauma, drugs, prison, and death. But the message I bring to all of you today is one of hope and encouragement. Now, I don't glorify nor do I condone street life, because in reality, I've gotten nothing from the streets but dead friends that I miss daily and felonies that prevent me from getting certain jobs. It is a lifestyle that promises much, but only delivers degrees of failure. Now, I came of age during the violent crack era that ravaged every major city in America. I was raised by a beautiful single mother who did her best to raise 4 kids in the projects. There were no male role models, no lawyers, no doctors, no business or working class men. So a young, impressionable me only had one thing to look to for an example of what greatness and manhood looked like: the gangsters and drug dealers. So the streets quickly became that role model and male figure that I lacked. I often tell people that I feel robbed of a traditional childhood, because a normal 13, 14-year-old should be concerned with video games or playing sports in the park, whereas I was being trained in and around violence in a city that took no prisoners. Most of my life, I've been engulfed in the very street culture that I now protest. I lived, I breathed, and I was willing to die for it at one time. The end result, my arrest and a 50-year prison sentence. I lost it all in the blink of an eye. Now, it was a very dark and gloomy time when I first walked through those prison doors. I felt hurt, I felt pain, I felt anger, confused, but most of all, I felt alone. Feeling like my life had no meaning, I found meaning in gang life. I went to the Massachusetts prison system and I took control of the gang culture. And under my leadership, my gang became the biggest in the state, at its peak reaching over 130 members in every city, jail, prison throughout Massachusetts. I continued to be a source of pain and destruction, but not only in the community, but now in the prison system as well. It got to the point where prison officials locked me down. I was no longer allowed to reside in any prison system in Massachusetts because I was deemed a security threat to all of them. And authorities began proceedings to have me shipped far off to federal custody. Sometimes blessings come in the most harshest form. Because it was during that very long stay in segregation, in solitude, when I was finally able to be still, that I began to reflect and listen to that voice within. I began to question my life and the many decisions I made up to that point. And I realized that that lifestyle was constantly leading me down a dark hole, and that I wanted to do better, but I just didn't know how. How does one undo decades of social conditioning? That answer would ultimately come to me in the form of another incarcerated individual by the name of Mac Hudson. Now, Mac was a very well-respected individual throughout the prison system. He himself had once adapted that very same lifestyle, but changed his life. Now, Mac was more than just a simple mentor to me. I like to call him my guiding light, so to speak, because he worked tirelessly to set me on the path of self-knowledge and self-love. And despite me continuously, and I mean continuously messing up, that man never gave up on me. I am talking about someone believing in you in ways that you never thought you can believe in yourself. He consistently reminded me of how I can use my gifts and influence to uplift communities and individuals rather than destroy them. After a long administrative fight, I was eventually let back out in the Massachusetts prison system. I came out with this new bravado, this new idea that I've changed, I'm a changed man, I want to do better. Only if it was that easy. One big problem, I was still very much caught up in gang life and that street mentality. This lifestyle would consistently overcome my desire to do better. And it was then that an internal battle began. I began to struggle with the decisions I had to make as a gang leader that my heart no longer agreed with. That's because my heart left the street life long before my mind and body did. It was very hard and very difficult for me to shake loose that destructive mentality that served for years as my understanding and example of manhood. James Allen said it best, "As a man thinketh, so shall he be." Change begins with the way one thinks. And as Mac would say, you change that, I assure you the rest will follow. So under his guidance, I began to study Black history, then all history. And I began to develop this deeper understanding of the power structures, not just in America, but throughout the whole world, and how systems of America were designed to trap young Black men such as myself. Talk about a mental reawakening. Then I came across this term, restorative justice, and I began to study. And that gave me a deeper understanding of this word that we all know well, all too well, trauma. And how it not only affected me, but generationally, so many others. And then I came to realize that even though I may have been raised in and around violence, real strength can be found in the might of the intellect, in spirituality, and in constructive progress. And as I continue this journey of self-knowledge, self-love, and self-development, I developed a mentality that ultimately rejected criminality. Because I came to realize that every aspect of my struggle was designed for me to overcome the elements that held me captive, beginning with myself, then working outward. It was only then that I was able to finally break the chains of ignorance and take that first step towards this new version of myself. And that first step was me finally having the courage to step up and then step out of that street life and the mentality that went with it. No longer will my actions be dictated by blind ignorance. And no longer would I ever let the excuse of circumstance dictate who I should be. Since leaving prison and that lifestyle, I'm proud to say that I've co-founded community and political organizations that fight for the rights of those marginalized individuals and communities that society often deems unworthy. I work regularly with state and city leaders in the city of Boston and throughout Massachusetts to enact policies and practices that I hope, when I'm gone, will leave this world just a little bit better. As you heard, I'm co-founder CEO of my own company, and what we do is we specialize in empowering organizations and individuals nationwide to reach their fullest potential. And that's in whatever space they're in. But I also could not leave this stage without recognizing the day-to-day work I do with my wonderful Roker family, who gives me access to the beautiful young men throughout Boston, our highest city risk youth, with the collective goal of disrupting gang violence in Boston. We, as a society, should be very careful whom we judge as being worthy or unworthy of giving a second chance to. Because here's a fact that I'll leave you with. The majority of people who were fortunate enough to leave that lifestyle, including myself, will tell you that we came to be in that lifestyle due to an overwhelming sense to belong and a lack of and search for identity and purpose. In other words, community. And that it was someone who relentlessly believed in us and just extended just enough love, compassion, and understanding that not only gave us the environment, but the courage to step up and leave that lifestyle. My believers came in the form of a judge, and ironically, another incarcerated individual. So my question to each of you today is, who can you be that person for? So going forward from today, when the opportunity presents itself, and it will, I challenge you to extend an unconditional amount of love, compassion, empathy, and belief in someone you may feel doesn't deserve it, even if that someone is yourself. And I challenge you not to perpetuate the status quo that says this person or these people, the other, doesn't deserve to be believed in or given a second chance. Because I assure you, we are the ones that need it the most. So I ask you to be that judge that believes in me, or to be my brother Mac. But be them in your own way by believing in someone on your own terms. Because God just may be answering their prayers through you. I promise you, if you do this, you, as well as the world, will be better off because of it. I'm living proof of this. I came from a culture that gave me all types of titles I no longer accept. And prison tried to strip me from titles altogether and reduce me to a number. I am none of that. Today, I hold different titles. I am a founder, a CEO, a college graduate, a published essayist, a community leader, and as of today, I'm a TEDx speaker. Thank you.